So, Robert, why are you doing this?
Right, okay. Well, yeah, I was listening to this podcast, BBC podcast, a few years ago, and they were talking about this great fire in Alexandria. Have you heard of there was a great big library at Alexandria? You heard about that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happened was that every ship that comes into this port, whatever books or scrolls or whatever they've got on the ship, they had to go by law to the library at Alexandria, and they would give it, whatever they've got, to the librarian, and the library would make a copy, and then they would give the copy back to the ship. And so for years and years, I mean literally centuries, people would come in with different ships from all over the place, all over the world, and books would be copied, and there'd be this great vast array of huge books and scrolls of a huge amount of knowledge from all over the place, like books and plays and stories and everything else. And conservative estimates are like there were 20,000 documents there. Some people say like 200,000 documents. And then there was a massive fire, and the whole thing went up forever, and everything was lost. And I thought, wow. And the people in the podcast I was listening to talked about like the surviving plays, how lucky we were to have those. And I went, yeah, we must, what a real shame that we lost all that stuff from thousands of years ago. And then it hit me, I haven't read the stuff that survived. I've nothing, virtually nothing. So I thought, well, am I missing out on something here? So I looked at, my life and how it reflected me. And I thought, well, I've done a lot of Shakespeare. I've been in plays and I've studied plays, but I haven't done all of them. I wonder if they're any good. So I thought, I know, I'll write down all the plays, which at the time there were 37, and I looked down at the ones I hadn't seen. I'd seen all the famous ones pretty much, but not all of them. Anyway, so I came to the conclusion, I know I will set myself a target and I'm going to read all of them or see all of them. And so I did. And I learned a lot about, because I thought this Shakespeare was this great big genius, and he was. But it's not like he touches something and turns it instantly to gold. There's an awful lot of rubbish. Rubbish. And I was going, what? There's a few places which I'm going to talk about. You don't want to see. I've seen them, so you don't have to. Okay, so that's why I'm doing it, just to sort of, give you the benefit of my experience.
Okay, right. Well, we'll start with Taming of the Shrew.
All right. So, comedies. I like comedies Shakespeare, it's just wonderful. Taming of the Shrew is a very, very famous one, quite controversial, but I didn't really like it. It's about this woman called Kate, and there's a chap called Petruchio, and Kate's got this younger sister, and everyone loves the younger sister, and everyone wants to marry the younger sister, but the father says you can't marry the younger sister, because the sister can't get married because the older one has got to be fobbed off. So Petruchio comes along and tries to get engaged with Kate, and she's horrible and nasty and vicious and cruel, and basically beats her into submission by starving her to death and hitting her and all this sort of stuff. And it ends with her being submissive to him, and it's sort of funny in places, but it's not that. I could have lived my life quite happily and not seen it and been perfectly happy. Not one of my favourites. Two Gentlemen of Verona. Yeah, again, I think it's one of his early plays. It could even have been the first one, possibly, that he wrote, that we know of anyway. Two blokes, one's in love with this other girl and goes off to Verona. Or is it somewhere else? Anyway, he just goes off, and then he falls in love with someone else, and then his mate comes and follows him and finds out that he's fiddling about with two different girls at the same time, and then his ex-girlfriend, or the girl he first fell in love with, disguises herself as a boy and comes over, and there's a lot of that sort of stuff. It's okay. There's a bit of a controversial bit at the end where one of the guys says, right, I'm going to rape you now, and the girl goes, no, don't rape me, and that sort of stuff, and then he changes his mind, and they all get married and happy together. It's kind of a strange. Some people sort of put on the play without that little bit. It's okay. not great. You could live again your whole life and not see it, and be perfectly fine. So I wouldn't worry about it. As You Like It. It's one of the more famous ones. It's the one, if you know, the most famous quote in it is spoken by a character called Jacques, who's in the forest, and he talks about the 7 ages of man, and that's a very, very famous speech. Again, it's okay, it's not too bad, it's not terrible. It's about a boy and a girl, and Rosalind is one of the famous characters. It's one of the really great parts for women. And she disguises herself as a boy and goes to find her boyfriend. The boyfriend has been usurped by his younger brother for this dukedom or something, and he goes off in the woods and wanders around aimlessly. And it's kind of funny. It's all right. It's one of the. I would give it like a 6, 7 out of 10. It's not brilliant, but it's kind of nice. Well written. It's a piece of fluff. It's great. It's nothing serious. It's lots of, mistaken. It's 2 twins. Two sets of twins get separated at birth, and they're both given identical names. And then one's in Ephesus and one's in, I forget where it is now, Navain or wherever. They basically, one set of twins gets washed ashore, and then they enter the city where the other set of twins have lives and interact with each other, and one gets mistaken for the other twice. It's funny. It's like you'll go and have a nice time. It's not one of the great plays, but it's right. It's right. It's good. It's fun. It's great. It's really. Again, Merchant of Venice. People say the Merchant of Venice, and they don't think. Wait, is it a comedy really? Because the famous scene is you've got Shylock, of course, and Shylock is one of the great Shakespeare characters. He's only got 5 scenes in the entire play. It's not, although he's got 5 great scenes. It's where he asks for his pound of flesh. And so this merchant, who is not Shylock, it's someone else, ensures that some ships go away, and they're supposed to come back with all this gold and silver, and he's going to pay off Shylock. And the ships sink, supposedly, and then he can't pay, and Shylock says, well, you'll have to give me a pound of flesh, which is basically cut off some bit of your skin and give it to me. And in the meantime, there's this other sort of story going on, which is really quite nice, where there's this woman who's heir to this great big fortune, and there are 3 boxes. Her father's dead, but the father says before he dies, if a suitor comes along and you can pick the correct box, he will marry you, and there's a gold box, a silver box, and a bronze box, or something. It's really quite funny. It's well written. You can really enjoy it, and you can see lots of different interpretations, different ways, and it's very good, high quality, well written, well thought out, proper play. I'd love to go and see it again. I wouldn't have any problem with that. It's great. 9 out of 10 if we have to give marks. All right. It's all right. It's a bit. Again, is it really a comedy or not? It's sort of half and half. It's about a girl who falls in love with a boy, and the boy doesn't really fancy the girl, but the girl sort of cures his dad of something, and the dad says, right, you have to marry this girl, and he goes, no, I'm not going to. He basically marries him in scarpers and fights a war and stuff, and they eventually get together at the end. It's all right. It's not. It's a bit long-winded and a bit. Do I have to watch all of them? It's not going to set the world on fire. Oh, it's painful. I do like Shakespeare, yeah. I've come to appreciate the really good ones a lot more than A Winter's Tale. It's like 2 completely different plays stuck together. There are 2 kings. One's visiting the other king, and the king is with his wife. And one king gets really jealous, and then people start dying left, right, and centre, and the daughter runs away and gets lost for 20 years. There's a controversial bit where this daughter or the queen or something gets. We think she's dead, but then there's like a statue, and there's some sort of magic, and she comes back to life again. And there's a bit of controversy as well. Is it really the queen who comes back to life again, or is it just she's pretending to be a statue? Again, it's very, very odd. I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't want to see it again. But it's famous because there's one scene where it says this man runs off stage and it says exit followed by a bear. So, you know, normally people dress up as a bear and run off, or there's actually what there used to be like a live bear. There's bear baiting in Warwickshire a long time ago. So, do you have a real bear or do you have the fake bear? But there's got to be a bear in there somewhere. But don't see it. It's very. I found it stupid and boring and tedious. But it's a work of pure genius. It's pure joy from start to finish. It's wonderful, very, very funny. Lots of interconnected characters. You've got magic and fun and love and tears and joy. And I adapted this myself for my kids at school. Words for Hamlet. It's just pure genius from start to finish. Lots of really good quotes in it. You have this again, the magic. You have like a magic potion, and you drop the potion into someone's eyes while they're sleeping, and when they wake up, they fall in love with the first thing they see. And so you get boys being chased by girls, and then they have the magic potion, and then they chase them back, and then Queen of the Fairies, Titania, has this potion put in her eye, and she falls in love with the bloke who's got a donkey's head on, and it's really weird and strange and beautiful, and there's lots of things you can do with it, but it's just wonderful. Genius, genius, genius.
Is it?
Okay, this is fluff again. It's a bit like the comedy eras. This is Falstaff. Now, Falstaff is one of the great characters from Shakespeare. He's used in Henry IV Part 1, Henry IV Part 2, which are sort of history plays, but he's a great comic character. He's just this drunken, I wouldn't say he's a fool, but he's just a complete coward who pretends to be this great soldier. And at the time, because he gets killed off in Henry V. He was supposed to be in Henry V, and the actor who played Falstaff at the time, I think, fell out with Shakespeare, and so Shakespeare wrote him out Henry V, so he actually dies then. But I think he was very popular with the Queen and with the King, and so he wrote a brand new play just for Falstaff, and it's called The Merry Wives of Windsor. So it's about him trying to seduce two women at the same time, and they know he's doing it, and so he gets into all sorts of scrapes. At one point, he gets put into this wicker hamper, and they throw him in the Thames. And yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's not fantastically wonderful play. It's just for comic relief, really. But it's all right, you know. Yeah. Again, not massively impressive. We've got one king and some lords, and they want to study. And they think, well, women are a distraction, so they take an oath. We're not going to see any women. Women are barred from this place for 3 years or something, and then we're going to study. And guess what? They fall in love with these women very soon afterwards. And it's all right. It's not great. One thing is that there's one very famous scene where someone comes on, and so one of the lords is talking. I think he's wooing one of these girls, and the other three are hidden. But they all three who are hiding don't know about the presence of the other two, and so it's quite a very complicated scene where people hide and observe at different times without knowing each other. It's one of those very intricate. It's supposed to be like one of the great sort of scenes, but apart from that, I'll give it that. Measurement again. It's not. It's listed as a comedy by some people. It's one of those sort of problem plays. Some people don't like problem plays. They think you shouldn't call it a problem play. It's sort of half a tragedy, half a comedy. There are funny bits in it, but it's very long. It's about a duke goes away, leaves his second in command in charge of this place, and one of the rules, which was sort of not really observed, but it was in the rules, was that if a boy gets a girl pregnant, and they're not married, then the boy has to die. And so he starts enforcing this rule. This boy gets locked up. His sister, who is a nun, comes along and begs for his life. And the duke says, well, you know, I'll let him go, but you've got to sleep with me. And she goes, I'm not doing that. And it's kind of a funny scene when she goes into the jail, says, oh, well, there is no hope. He goes, really? Yeah, there's no hope. The only thing he said was, if I sleep with him, we'll let you go. And he goes, well, go on then. Go on then. And you know, she says, my chastity and honour is worth more than your flipping miserable life, and that's kind of a funny thing. There's another in the prison itself. There's a prisoner who never gets killed because he's supposed to die. He's got a capital punishment, but he's always drunk and wake up. You got to be executed. No, I'm too sleepy. Go away. Come back tomorrow. And that sort of stuff. It's kind of a funny thing. But again, it's a kind of a weak play. It's not fabulous. It's a bit long-winded, and I really wouldn't want. I was in it for months, and I'm sick to death of it. Really, it's not. Again, it's a problem. It's sort of doesn't really know what it wants to be. Half and half. What you do about nothing is total joy, start to finish. It's a comedy, obviously, but it's just wonderful. Every scene in it is just done to perfection. It's beautiful language. It's really funny. It's something we can really associate with. It's like it's like putting a microscope on like young children and blowing up. So like if you're in the playground and you fancy her and you don't want to say anything, and the mates will tell her, and it's sort of like that. So there's this great big. There are two wits, Benedict and Beatrice, and they're known for sort of being fiery and not getting involved with anyone. And then his mates and her mates get together, and so they sort of let him overhear that Beatrice loves him, and they make her overhear that Benedict loves her, but just total rubbish. But so and then you see them how their characters change when they think someone else really loves them, and I can't think about it without smiling. It's just heaven. It's a wonderful piece of literature. It's go and see it as many times as you like. You can't do it badly. It's just brilliant. The Tempest. Now this is apparently one of the very last plays he did, and you can read a lot into it. There's a character in there called Prospero, who's this sort of magician and who dictates what happens on this island. And many people believe that the character Prospero was actually William Shakespeare writing himself into this play as an old man, because he, as William as a playwright, writes what happens to the characters, obviously, and Prospero dictates with his magic what happens to the people on this little tiny island. And it's a pretty. I wouldn't say it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful piece of literature, but it's really up there with among the top 10 best. I would have thought. One of the famous characters is called Caliban, who's this sort of half monster, half human sort of character who gets to get kicked around and stuff, and that's kind of funny. It's not. Again, not the very, very best stuff, but you could do an awful lot worse than go and see The Tempest. But it's interesting to watch it from the perspective of this is what William Shakespeare was doing in his final years. This is how he was seeing life and how to write a play. And it's nice. It's a joy from start to finish. It's absolutely wonderful. Again, we're dealing with cross-dressing and twins being separated at birth and that sort of stuff. There are a lot of. It's like if music with the food of love play on, blah 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 blah. That sort of speech, and you might know that one. But there's a very famous thing where this one woman who I think her brother dies or something, and she's dressed in black all the time, and Duke Orsino wants to marry her, and she doesn't want anything to do with him. And one of her Malvolio, who works for this Duchess, these people play a trick on him, and they say, well, look, what she really likes is Malvolio. He goes, blah, 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 blah. He finds a letter or something, and it's written here, and it's all fake. And in this letter it says, I really like men who wear yellow stockings, cross-gartered, and so you can't believe this. And so he goes, and then he comes on stage with his bright yellow, with a cloak around him, and he opens and reveals his great big yellow garters, and we know that she hates this stuff, but she's going, oh God, what's he doing? And he's going, hey, look at his gorgeous ass. It's just wonderful. It's truly funny from beginning to end. It's wonderful. You'll come out of it, skip